In this video, we're going to practice taking averages on subsets of a large data set based on some criteria within that data set. So, for example, this spreadsheet has the salaries of all the NHL players in the 2011 series. As you can see, we also have some other information on the players, such as the team they played on and their position. So what if we wanted to see average salary by team or average salary by position? Let's try average salary by position. And the steps we'll go through to do this would be very similar if you wanted to calculate average salary by team. So the first thing we need to do is get a list of all the positions. To do that automatically, we can use the advanced data filter function. So if I go to the Data tab, over here in the Sort and Filter section, click on Advanced. That brings up the Advanced Filter dialog. What we're doing with this essentially is taking this list of positions, copying it to another location, but only copying the unique records. So I want to check Copy to another location, check Unique Records Only. The next thing we have to fill in is the list range. This just tells the advanced filter what list that we're copying and filtering for unique records only. This list is the positions. So we want to include the title at the beginning, at the top of the column. So I click on the POS. Oops, first I have to get over here into the list range box. After I have the insertion point there, I click on the first position and then use Control-Shift down arrow to select them all. Now I'm going to use my slider to get back up to the top because the next thing we're filling out is where we want to copy the list to. I want to copy it to G1. So I click on G1 and that's where my new list will begin. Click OK. There's all the positions, C, D, G, L, W, and R, W. For each one, I want the average salary. So let's prepare this part of the table, of the spreadsheet. Okay. How do I calculate the average salary for all the centers? The way we do this is use a function called AVERAGEIF. For this function, you can give it two ranges of data. It uses the first range of data to apply some criterion. If the criterion is met, it takes the numbers from the other range of data and averages them. Here's how we would use it for this. Type equals AVERAGEIF. The first range is the range of data to which the criterion is going to be applied. Our criterion are going to be equals C, equals D, equals G, and so on. So that range is the positions. So I click on the first position, use Control-Shift down arrow to select them all. I want this to be an absolute reference so that I can copy this formula down later on. So I hit F4. See how these change to absolute references with the dollar signs? So now my first range is entered. I type a comma. The next thing is the criterion. I could type equals C in that position, but then I'd have to do it for every row. If I click on the cell that has the C for center, what that means is the criterion is equals whatever is in that cell, G2. Now I put a comma. Kevin, take it. The next thing we do is tell it the range of data that has the numbers that are going to be averaged. So that's the salaries. I click on the first one, use Control-Shift down arrow to get to the bottom. Now I hit F4 again to make it an absolute reference. And then close the parentheses. So there's my formula. I'm going to format that as currency, make the column a little bit wider, and drag the formula down. here's the formula again. Average if. The first range is the range to which the criterion is applied. So it's the positions. The middle thing is the criterion. If I just put a cell reference, the criterion means count the ones that are equal to this, whatever's in this cell. So what it's doing is whenever it finds a C, it goes over to the next range, E2 to E709, and takes the number and includes that number in the average. So we can see for the NHL, salaries are fairly similar across all the positions. Let's try it again for average salary by team. So we go to the data, advanced filter. I'm going to do the same thing, but this time for the teams. So I want to copy a list to another location, unique records only. The place I want to copy it to this time is right here. That's cell G8, so I click on it. And the list I want to copy unique records from is going to be the teams. So I click on the first, Control-Shift down arrow, and now I say OK. Now I have a list of all the teams. Average salary. So I'm going to put in the cell borders so it's easy to see. And we use the same average if formula. Equals average if. The first range is the teams. Control-Shift down arrow. Hit F4 to make it an absolute reference, comma. Second reference is the criterion. So we're going to count ones that are equal to whatever's in this cell here. And then another comma. The third reference is to the range where the numbers are that we're averaging. And that's the salaries. So I click on the first one, Control-Shift down arrow. The function for key to make an absolute reference. Type the right-hand side of the parentheses, enter. Format as currency. And now I can copy this down and I have the average salaries by team for the NHL. NHL has a salary cap, so you see the average salaries are much more similar for NHL than they would be for Major League Baseball, for example.